And it's showtime. Wait for this to go live on Talk Hole, of course.
Yeah, let's share this real quick here, buddy. I'm gonna share this on my social media platform there, guy and girl. Where you
Come on,
going,
live
man?
video.
Where you going?
There we go. Sharing now.
Right.
Join us. Okay, fan testicle. All right, we're going to go ahead and get this show, this party, all of this started. This is Mentor in the Mirror podcast, also streaming live on Facebook for anyone that's also checking out the videos. So my name is Cole.
My name is Ta.
We are
Ta
Cole, and this is Mentor in the Mirror
Yeah,
podcast,
yeah.
as I mentioned. And we're just going to dive into conversation because things are changing by the moment, the day, the second, and the co-creation and collaboration is one of the most empowering elements. And there's no more expansive person to have this conversation with than our amazing friend Ani. So thank you so much, Ani, for coming on our show after we came on yours. There's so much more to talk about.
What up, man?
Hello. Such a
How you doing?
pleasure.
Yeah, great to have you, man. Yeah,
I'm doing really great, and I'm doing really great because I'm choosing, rather than to consume, to produce.
Hmm.
And that's across every area of my life. Everything from content and really speaking and sharing my message, rather than consuming media and consuming news and consuming fear and consuming panic, right down to food, rather than consuming food to numb myself, to stop myself from feeling emotions as a way of distraction. I'm fasting all day and I eat my first meal usually 6 or 7 p.m. every day. It's this shift, I think, that is so well timed because, we can choose how we react to situations, and we can react to the situation we're in right now by contracting, by going into fear, by narrowing our scope of possibilities, by telling us that we're out of options, that because we're restricted indoors, we have to live a life that is lower in quality, where we're losing things and we're potentially losing opportunity in our businesses, we're losing access in our life. Instead, we can choose to expand. We can choose to rise above our circumstances. We can choose to create our circumstances rather than be the victim of what's happening outside. And we can choose to create the reality that we want to live in rather than the one that we're told we have to abide by. So I'm doing great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and that's the whole premise of your podcast, Entrepreneurs Rising, is this whole idea that there is so much going on right now. This is also from the ashes where things are created, right? This is the opportunity to build the foundation for the life we're looking to live next month, next week, next year. And it starts with what in your current life today are you going to keep? What are you going to bring in? We've gone through this entire life elimination diet in many ways. So as we rebuild, what do you want to keep? What do you want to let go of? And what are you currently facing that you had some serious attachment to?
Right. That attachment is such a strong piece, right? Because we are being tested in terms of all these things that we took for granted, all these things we were attached to. And we see almost a global pattern interrupt on a scale that we've never experienced before as a collective species, where every single person is affected. I think this is the real globalization. This is the real test of what is actually important and what's, fluff. And that comes in the form of, what we can do right now in terms of, going out and bars and restaurants and all the ways in which people would cope with the reality of their life, trying to numb it, to, how we choose to operate. And I really believe that our level of consciousness determines our success in our businesses, the level of fulfillment and happiness we have in life, the quality of our relationships, our health. And we're being challenged by the universe, by the environment, by forces outside our control to really up level, to really call into question all the choices we used to make habitually. And I know, Ta, that the the way we habituate ourselves into these patterns is something, you talk about a lot. And I really feel like this is a time where we're being asked what is important, as you said, Cole. What is really important? How do we want to show up? What do we want to do with our time? How do we want to treat our bodies? Who are we in this global system that we live in? And what do we want to choose to habituate? And what are the habits that are no longer serving us that we want to use this opportunity to get rid of?
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you're telling your clients and the people that are coming to you right now? You did talk about that you're creating instead of consuming. What other things are you saying as far as tools or things to consider or resources?
Yeah. So, there's this quote that goes, there's three kinds of people in the world: the people who make things happen, the people who watch things happen, and the people who wonder what happened. And as entrepreneurs, as business leaders, we have to be in the first category. Because if we're not the ones making things happen, if we're not the creators of our reality, of our business, of our marketplace, if we're not showing up, being seen, and leading, especially when everyone else is panicking and in fear, then we're going to be the ones who'll be watching things happen, who'll be reacting, who'll be victims of our own circumstance, because we spent this entire period, which is the biggest gift any entrepreneur can ask for, and I'll explain why, just hiding, being in our own fear, and feeling sorry for ourselves because we feel like victims. Now, the reason why this is the biggest gift, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, if you have any kind of business, you're a leader, you influence people, you couldn't ask for a better situation than this. And I'll tell you why. So number one, this is a time when you can separate yourself from everyone else. This is the time when most people find out what they're made of. And most people are succumbing to the fear, they're succumbing to the panic, they're succumbing to being and yes, there's people dying, there's people seriously affected, and my heart goes out to them. But if you're safe in your home, stockpiled with all sorts of resources and supplies, and you run a business and you're feeling sorry for yourself, sitting at home thinking that, everything's about to fall apart and, you're in trouble, then you need to wake up, because your people, your community, they want you to lead them. And when you speak up, when you allow yourself to be seen, and when you broadcast your message over the treetops, then people hear that. And now more than ever, people are going to see who are actual leaders and who are actually followers who've been masquerading as leaders. The second thing is, most entrepreneurs, and you guys talk about this a lot, have built their entire business on the backs of hustle. And this is something that, entrepreneurship is something that very few people are taught about. So most people think that when I work really hard, when I work, 8 to 16 hours a day, and, I work, and I sacrifice my sleep, I sacrifice my body, I sacrifice my mental peace to grow this business, then I will be successful. And when I'm successful, I'll be happy. And this is this conditional paradigm that most entrepreneurs are busy slaving away in their business, trying to grow it, thinking that eventually they'll take that break, they'll take that year off, they'll travel around the world, they'll spend time with the family. But right now, I have to work. And to add to that, I'm going to stimulate myself with a lot of coffee, potentially some amphetamines and some Adderall. And I'm
Adderall, Kratom, all of the
exactly all the
energy
hacks,
boosting. Yep.
all the energy boosting things, because that's the paradigm I'm living in. Now, this is a global system interrupt for all those entrepreneurs who've been using hustle to build their business, to actually slow down, to actually pause, to actually realize that you can actually create so much more, so much better, and so much clearer when you're not basically burnt out. And most entrepreneurs are using, a predominantly high sympathetic nervous system charge to drive their businesses, step on the gas pedal. And they do this because they want to avoid actually slowing down, because when we slow down, we have to be with ourselves. And I forget who said this, but the quote goes like, all of a man or woman's problems come from their inability to sit quietly in a room by themselves. Most people are trying to avoid themselves because most entrepreneurs are creating from a place of deficit. And as long as we create from a place of deficit, we will be unwilling to slow down and actually see ourselves, to be with ourselves, right? And so we habituate pressing on the gas pedal, go, 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 being in this disease of doing. And this is one of the biggest opportunities any entrepreneur is going to get to actually slow down and really meet themselves, maybe in the mirror.
Yeah, man, I think it's entrepreneurs and people in general, man, that are hiding from themselves. They've been taught to, it's been built into our society to actually not feel, don't feel what's going on. Don't feel those feelings. Hold them in instead.
Turn it off.
So it's like really, I really love the way you place that, man. And this is part of the trap that people get caught in as far as being entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs are the people who tend to lead the way for all of our business situations. They've been the people who started all of the corporations and stuff from eons ago. And, this drive to hide from the feelings, this drive to not feel the sadness of a parent not being there, or the abuse, or whatever was going on, this drive. And this is showing up now in a space where we have to sit with ourselves, and then people are getting in their houses and they don't know what to do with themselves. And all of this stuff is coming to the surface. And I think this is a ripe time, like you were saying, for entrepreneurs, as well as other people, to sit with those feelings and learn how to navigate it and create a new normal in the nervous system of how to be able to manage the feelings that are real. We've been put in this place in our world, and this is something that Cole and I work very deeply in with people, is that emotions are considered inconvenient in our world because they get in the way of your business. They get in the way. They get in the way of school.
I don't have time for this.
I don't have time for this shit right now. And your emotions are inconvenient. If you're angry, it's holding up progress. If you're sad, it's holding up progress. If you're too happy, it's holding up progress, right? If anything is going on with you, if you're frustrated, it's holding up progress. So we're taught to bury that stuff down and push it down, especially with entrepreneurs, man. Push that stuff down. And I think that it's an awesome point to bring up to get people in this space where they can allow themselves to feel, and then maybe lean into the people that they live with and start talking about this stuff. Listen, you know what? I ain't got to go to work. I don't need to be productive. So this feeling is coming up and I don't know what to do with it. How do I lean into this? And when you learn how to navigate that, you bring it to the surface and you show other people how to do it. This is a perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs to really bring that body situation into their businesses and integrate everything that they're learning about themselves with their businesses. This is how Cole and I got the business that we have, because we've navigated so many spaces of discomfort, so many spaces of incongruence and inconvenient emotions that, I can't, the shame device is something that we're working on dissecting right now and breaking that apart so people can understand how deeply rooted the idea that something is wrong with you is embedded in all of our structures, especially our businesses. What's wrong with that guy? I can't hire that guy. He's too emotional.
Or I can't believe people went out to the store. How dare they? Like the amount of times I've heard, I'm disgusted that there's people that have gone out to the park or whatever. That is an internal toxic energy. Like shame is cancerous. And if it's around sexual shame, then we see things like endometriosis, erectile dysfunction, like shame is a virus that we have been carrying and proliferating as a race, as humanity since, I don't know, thousands of years at this point.
In the history of humanity, since we've been able to create,
communicate,
and create fiction. As soon as we started to be able to create fiction, we could get people to believe things, and we started utilizing shame. And if you want to read a good book, have you read *Sapiens*, bro?
I have. Absolutely incredible.
Incredible book, and it talks about the creation of fiction and stuff. But I mean, the shame device, there are two types of fear, right? There's functional fear and dysfunctional fear. And people are in a space where they're trying to eradicate fear. Now, fear is a tool, and it tells you that there's a change that's imminent, right? It tells you, or there's a potential change imminent. So it tells the body to prepare. It tells the organism to prepare. Now, there's fear that protects you from getting hit, right? Or fear that protects you from having an onslaught of some sort. And then there's fear that puts you in a space that you should hide, because if you don't, you'll be isolated from everybody else. Something's wrong with you if you are that way, so hide it. So that's dysfunctional fear. And the shame device drives the dysfunctional fear, and it puts the body in a space where it's looking to protect itself for reasons that are dysfunctional. And man, every entrepreneur that we've worked with that has been in this space that's trying to be on brand, that's afraid that people are not going to buy their stuff if they show up as themselves fully, because their emotions are attached to it, and emotions are inconvenient.
And it is still the idea of deficit, because it's saying that if I am fully myself, I'll lose my followers, which means I will lose money, which means I do not have enough to afford to lose any at whatever cost. And, you know, that is the opportunity right now, is to also see who of people's audiences they want to take with them moving forward, and not to abandon anyone, but more of the opportunity for them to lean in or lean away to find a system and structure that's actually functional for them. Because on an energetic level, if you are not congruent, that shows up in your money. That shows up in your energy. And that also determines who leans in and who is kind of like, I'm not sure about them. There's something there that's just not quite resonant for me.
Yeah, and it'll show up in your body.
Yeah, and Tal, like you were saying, you know, there's two kinds of fear. To me, fear is information, right? Fear is information, like all the other emotions we feel. And the ability we have to feel our emotions is the extent to which we can be entrepreneurs and leaders. Because when we don't have a capacity, a kind of resilience, a kind of tolerance for our own emotions, amongst them is fear, it really means that we can't we can't process all the information that's available to us. And as business leaders, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we can't, when we act based on incomplete information, we make shitty decisions. So our success, it literally depends on being able to receive and be open to all the information that's available to us. But when we're blunted emotionally, when we're repressed, when we're using shame either with ourselves or in the way that it was used with us, which was habituated in our patterns, then we are essentially blocking off all the information that's available to us, because the conscious mind processes about 40 bits per second. The unconscious mind processes 40 million bits per second. So the unconscious is about 40, which is the million times more powerful in terms of information processing. So if you want to talk about decision making, if you can't feel your emotions, if you don't allow yourself to have access to your body, you are literally a shitty decision maker, and you're going to bring your business to the ground, and it's just not going to work.
Yes, my man. I could hear you talk all day, man. I love it. Absolutely. And the accent doesn't hurt at all, bro. I love it. Absolutely love it, man. I think that's such a powerful statement, man. The body has to be involved in everything. And that's, you know, when we're working with people, we call it biointegration. It's really getting the body online with everything that you're doing. When your when your sympathetic nervous system is downregulated and your parasympathetic is upregulated, it allows you to relax, sit back, and actually be able to experience everything around you with so much more quality. It's ridiculous. And that parasympathetic activation, sympathetic deactivation that's the sweet spot, man. That's where everything starts to happen. And that's where you can see everything. You can feel everything. When I'm going to do any kind of business interaction, I get myself into a space where my body is able to feel everything, including the heat in the room, the heat of the other person's body, and knowing how I coincide with another person or the people in the room is really, really important for me to be able to do any kind of transaction with people, be that business or otherwise.
And your perceptual abilities in that state are so heightened. They're so much more heightened than being in a contractic, sympathetic, dominant state. And let's translate this to money, right? Because people might be listening and they're like, well, but I need to make money and my priority is profit. Great, I hear you. Your ability to make money is dependent on your ability to understand what problems people have and how to solve them. Your ability to understand what your team members are feeling, how are they doing, so you can motivate them and so you can lead them. Your ability to actually translate what you do and what you into a cogent, empathetic message, which is marketing. Now, every single aspect of your business is affected by the state that you're in when you're operating in that business. So if you don't put yourself in the right state, and in this case, if you don't spend your time predominantly in a parasympathetic nervous system state, then you're literally doing yourself, your business, your prospects, and your profits a complete and utter disservice.
Yes, man. Bong. I just want to, man, you keep scoring with me, man. And for you to be in a flow space the way you were flowing and use the word cogent, I'm in love, man. I am a vocabulary geek. And for, and for you to throw cogent in there and just sew it all together. I love it, bro. Fantastic. Yeah.
You know, you touched on something that's been a lot of the focus of the conversations we've been having with people. And until you're first aware of where you are in your nervous system responses and what it's reactive to, so many people are walking around fear of being out of control when they're constantly out of control. And that has to do with the more reactive state you're in. That means if a car door slams or you see a mouse or whatever, you have no control over your body's natural processes that keep you alive. They're designed there for a reason. People have the opportunity right now to slow down and deconstruct some of these patterns through acknowledgement, through felt sense. And until you do that work, you cannot perceive in your teams or the people that work for you when they're in a sympathetic state, when they're in a heightened state, because these are people with kids at home, stuff going on in their families, fear of, everything going on, that even if you're cool and collected, they may not be. And that means they're making decisions from a reactive space. And so now is the opportunity. And you know what? Forget opportunity. Those that take this time to deconstruct and really integrate with their biology are going to be in the long game. They're the ones that are not going to experience a health crash. They're going to have sustainability, optimization, and far more expansion in the marketplace because their body will be able to keep up. Just like in a race, in a car race, the brake is as important as the gas to cross the finish line. And if you go hardcore into what we identify as that Puma energy, because right now there's need and necessity and for a lot of people survival, if you stay in that, it's like holding down the gas around the track, you're going to end up off the track and in the wall because you have to know when to pull back. You have to know when to brake on the turns.
Yeah, and to combine both your, words and analogies, right? What's really happening is people are using, rather than the brake, they're using the emergency brake, right? Which goes back to what you were saying, Ta. When we're carrying a high sympathetic charge, this is the state where we're way past the fight and flight responses, where we go even further, we go into freeze, and we literally have to shut down our entire body to decompress. This takes the form of a couple of glasses of wine, maybe half a joint, maybe, watching 4 hours of Netflix continually till we turn into zombies, because that's what it takes. That's the emergency brake. And there's nothing more damaging than using the emergency brake instead of the regular brake.
Yep. Well, I'm not even going to go into it. I am going to pause for a second and say, hi, Rob Dial. I love you so much. Come back. I know you don't want to come back from Sedona, but I think that you guys should.
What up, Lori Kaplan? What's up, girl? I see you.
Yes, we see you, Lori. We have, I know Ron is on the show.
Maji Rojas.
Yes. Thank you, everyone that takes the time to pop in on these lives or listening on the podcast as well.
Appreciate y'all.
So, Ani, with what you're seeing for the next 90 days, right? Because right now, nobody knows what normal is going to look like when we can go back to not being under this quarantine impact. What are your projections? What are your beliefs as far as how, to give people some ideas, at least what, from your perspective, what this could look like and what they could prepare for if they are consciously aware?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first thing is we're going to see a culling in the entrepreneurship space, which means anyone who is offering something that was a nice to have that didn't have tangible value associated with it isn't going to make it, because the market for, extraneous and, I'm not going to use the word luxury because the luxury market will still thrive, but people aren't going to be casually spending, 5, 7K on programs and, just dropping cash without, any care. So the first thing is, if you're a business owner and you're selling something that, you were able to get by without really proving concrete value, it's about to get more difficult. So the first thing is messaging, marketing is going to be very key, and really communicating the immediate impact of what you're providing is going to be key. So non-essential goods and services, unless they're able to adapt, and this means contextualize their marketing and messaging to what's happening in the world, make it relevant, because otherwise it's going to seem like you're tone deaf. You have to stay relevant. They say Darwin said it's the survival of the fittest, but that's an incomplete quote that most people think. What Darwin actually said, that it's not the fittest, the strongest, and the fittest of a species that survive, but actually the most adaptable. And the key here is adaptation. And just like natural selection, we're going to see a natural selection with business. And unless you're relevant, unless you're adaptable, unless you're responsive, all of which, to Ta's point, require you being in an open space, in an open state, in a calm state where you can actually sense yourself, you can sense other people, you can, check the barometer in terms of where people are and how they're doing, you're going to come off as insensitive. Now that's one. The second thing is, most people think that this is the time to stop selling. This is the time to stop doing business. This is the time to discount, slash prices, offer free stuff. Sure, if you really want, but you're not going to make it very long. So what I'm advising my clients is to do the opposite. This is the time when my clients are doing $1 million launches. This is the time when they're introducing new products. They're experimenting with different business models. And to Laurie's point, we have to ask ourselves, what are people going to need as they come out of this, and how can we help them? Now, business is actually very simple. Figure out what people need, give it to them, and exchange that for money, right? And most people, right, they overcomplicate this. And complex is different from complicated. So business, running a business, growing a business right now especially, might be complex, but it's people with our inability to be with ourselves, to understand ourselves, to sense ourselves, that creates the overcomplication. Because that's when we do 50 things in response, because the one thing that we need to do, which may be what you guys are doing, which is going out, being seen, doing lives, publishing your content, allowing people to know what you stand for someone that might be hard. So they spend all their time, they work like 18 hours a day, but they're writing blog posts that no one's reading. So this is the time when you want to step up and really ask yourself, what do people need? And this requires empathy, right? And coming back to what you said, Todd, this requires us to be able to sense ourselves, because the more we can sense ourselves, which means we can't be numbing ourselves at the same time, the more we can sense ourselves, the more we can sense others. The more we can sense others, the more we can understand what people need. Because there's companies that are doing exceptionally well. Zoom, for example, is up 45% in the stock market, right? And this is a company that essentially suddenly became the most important tool for companies all around the world that need to go remote. So even in a time like this, people are buying, people are spending money, right? We just need to be awake enough, aware enough, and open enough so we can see where the opportunity is, rather than get disheartened by all the fear and all the panic, which, let's be real, the media's job is to be sensationalist. So they are going to put out the statistics, and not that there aren't people dying, but that's not the full story. That's not the full picture. And the last thing I'll say is, this is a long-term game, and this is a short-term event. Sure, it might take us a few months to get out of this, but I believe that business is a long-term exercise. So if you're stuck in fear, if you're panicking, if you're contracted, then ask yourself, where do you want to be in 2030? It's a great way to allow your brain to switch from this short-term thinking to thinking long-term and relaxing, because you have to relax when you contemplate the future, because you're telling your body that you're still going to be alive then.
Yep.
And you're still going to have a business then. And when we can work from that place, right? That place where our business is about, 5 to 10 times bigger. We are living our dream life. We're living in the house that we want to live in. We have the lifestyle and the time freedom that we want, the location freedom maybe. And you can dream about all the people that you help and all the impact that you're making. Suddenly the body can relax. Suddenly we can enter that parasympathetic state. And suddenly we're not focused on the here and now. Now, if you are, limited in terms of the cash reserves you have, and you're like, in the next 2 months, unless I bring some money in, I'm going to go bankrupt, you have to ask yourself the question, what do people need right now? And you have to adapt. And the more responsive you are to what people actually need, because people will always pay for what they need, right? If you have a food delivery service, suddenly that's going to be making a lot of money because everyone's going to be ordering and people aren't going to be going out to the grocery stores. So stuff is still going to be sold. People are still going to buy, just like always. This is always going to be true. It's just that right now, the conditions have gone so that it's become a true meritocracy. So if your business is selling something that's non-essential that people can do without, chances are they will do without it. But if you're selling something that's important, that's essential maybe for running their business, to go remote, for people to have access to the same things that they did, maybe you can start a homeschooling company, because I hear parents are going nuts after 2 weeks and they're wondering why teachers only get paid $45,000 a year and nurses get paid $15 a year, $15 an hour. And now we're actually being confronted with the reality of the shit that, the people that we devalue so much with minimum wage in the society, what they actually do. So there's opportunity across the board. We just need to be in a state where we can see it.
Yes, and with, I did a live earlier today and I chatted a little bit about this, because what we know is that we are never going back from virtual. Anyone that's been avoiding technology and thought they could ride out the next 20 years of their life just not using it no longer has that luxury, if that was their perception of luxury. And if you're going to stay connected to people now, you no longer have a choice. I was talking to my dad yesterday and he said, wow, I've learned more about technology in the last week than I've learned, in my 45 years as a teacher, 47 years, whatever it is now. So it's, what are you going to do about it? There are so many needs that must be fulfilled that now there are companies and industries that always said you had to come into work. Now we know that isn't true. With current technological advances, it's not necessary to have so many people in an office. And like you said, with at-home schooling for kids, who wants to be the mentor and the teacher who mentors children through their homework with a class of 20 on Zoom? You know what I mean? For parents, instead of the parent having to do it themselves, because they have not been taught to be teachers. They might know how to teach certain elements, but they really have been offboarding 6 to 8 hours a day to someone else. Right. So for those that are willing to be the futurists, the thought leaders, the innovators, this is massive opportunity. In fact, for the innovators, the bumpers have been taken off of what is possible between the censorships we're seeing online, between all of the different channels. We're going to see a new technology emerge of social media, that because people are going to be craving a sense of security, of confidence and privacy. And there are certain elements in having so much virtual, people are going to need more feelings of security as a result, with their kids online and all of this, like internet security, virtual assistants. What are the needs people are going to have? And for one, the products we'll see launch in the next 90 days would have probably taken 5 more years to come out, and they're going to be out and ready.
And Ta, I think I'm going to tee you off with this. What you said, Cole, is so key, because what's happening is that everyone is being asked to face a lot of uncertainty. Everyone is being asked to if you run a business, to adapt in the face of uncertainty. And we can't do that unless we get our nervous system right. Right? And Ty, you say this time and time again, and it's so relevant right now, because for us to be adaptable, for us to be able to face uncertainty and come out on top, we have to be congruent with our bodies. We have to be friends with our bodies. We can't be at war with our bodies, because when we are at war with our bodies, we're at war in our mind, and we can't function and think and make the shifts that we need to operate in this new world, in this new way.
And to quote Bessel van der Kolk, right? As long as you keep secrets and suppress information, you are fundamentally at war with yourself. Right? I mean, that the important thing is to actually allow yourself to know what you know. And people are hiding from themselves. And that war within the self causes us to be in a space of sympathetic activation all the time. When I am trying to present myself a certain way that is not authentic, the body has to provide that, and there's an energetic space that the brain has to hold on to. That includes your physiological posture, the way you hold yourself up or the way you hide yourself. That's a posture that your brain is actually driving through the rest of your body. How you show up, how you talk to people, how you go to work, all of that stuff is part of that activation all the time. And when you're constantly activated like that, your logic decreases, your intelligence quotient decreases, and your ability to be empathetic decreases. So it's really all of these things getting driven down stop us from really being able to connect fully and being able to integrate the body into all of our situations. So I'm thanks for bringing that point to light, man. We've got to integrate these bodies with everything that we're doing from a space of authenticity, because when you are bullshitting, you ain't bullshitting nobody but yourself on a really deep level, and it's causing a physical degradation of your body that will end up in disease, whether you like it or not, whether you know it or not.
Right. And if you're not motivated by that, you can't hide from yourself and lead others at the same time, which means you can't grow your business, you can't make that money, and you can't please daddy, which might be the reason why you're in this business in the first place. And if that's the reason, if you're in business because you're trying to win approval, you're trying to win, acceptance, you're trying to be enough by creating this thing on the outside and by making this money and by doing all the things, then nothing will ever be enough. And right now you're going to be challenged more than any other time, because everything that you've built on the back of hustle, on the back of deficit, on the back of sacrifice is now being called into question. This is the time of reckoning, and this is when you either align, you get congruent, or you go extinct.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
Well, you said it.
It's a great place to drop the mic, bro.
Exactly.
Great place to do it. So, this is the Mentor in the Mirror podcast. We always ask, or we do our best to always ask, if you had something.
We like to invite.
We like to invite people. Our thing that we do with people is we get them to stand in front of the mirror and talk to themselves. And we believe that the greatest mentor of all is the one that's in the mirror, that can tell you about yourself, that knows you more than any person on the planet. If you could advise or encourage or invite our listeners and watchers to go into the mirror and say one thing to themselves, what would it be?
If it's just one thing, it would be just, I love you.
Yeah, let that soak in, y'all. I love you.
I love you.
I love you.
And, this is that chance to reflect on what story you're telling yourself. I would imagine whatever you're experiencing in this current climate, this is not your first time in these kinds of thoughts. This is simply a magnification of the beliefs that you have. And if you think the virus is out to get you, you have probably believed that the world is out to get you. You just may have projected it on men. You may have projected it on scary dogs or pit bulls or whatever. Now it's just being projected onto another thing that is the enemy. So really taking that time to, should you choose to take that time, then the filter and the story you tell after this can be a totally different experience. So that is the invitation. And as always, we love you so much. And if you've loved what you've heard, if you, this is a time to share this with people, tag people in these videos. It's the only way that these messages can start to meet even fractions of the fear that's being completely pushed out.
Yeah. And before we go, Ani, please tell the people where they can find you, man.
Yeah. So you can find me at the Entrepreneurs Rising podcast. Just search Entrepreneurs Rising on all the podcast platforms. My website is animanian.com, ANIMANIAN.com. And, come at me. I have a lot of love and a lot of stuff to share. And, my mission is to really change the world with, by helping entrepreneurs, because I believe that entrepreneurs are the ones who are going to, bring us out of this place in this economic climate, this social climate. Entrepreneurs are the ones that are producing, 3D printed ventilators right now, because our current medical infrastructure is completely incompetent and insufficient. Entrepreneurs are the ones that are solving some of the world's greatest problems. And, I want to selfishly impact 1 billion people before I die. And, I really think that the more entrepreneurs we can support and help to really exponentially increase their influence, their impact, everything they do to make a difference, that's really the kind of path to do exponential work. So it's my pleasure to serve. I love you all. I love you both. This has been a real delight.
Yeah, and very much likewise, brother.
And much
Love you
more
so
to
much.
come.
Yeah. So please, again, rate, review, subscribe, share with a friend.
We appreciate you. We love you. My name is Cole.
My name is Ta.
Be free.